Mr. Ryan Chaos Curtis.
Pleasure, brother.
We got you here. We did it.
Yeah.
How are you?
Finally. Good.
Good. We're laughing here on camera. We're here. We're already here an hour and a half.
Yeah.
We just pressed record now.
I know,
Yeah.
crazy.
We should have rolled and all that kind of stuff there. Thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate it. But looking forward to the conversation. I am going to hit you straight away.
Yes.
With not necessarily a question about your past, but a question about who you are now. You had a pretty severe accident. We'll get into the details of that. People are probably familiar with it. So I'm not going to get you to relive that for me. But do you think that incident in your life revealed something about you or changed something about you? Do you think it made you a different person or brought some stuff up from the core of who you are?
I think it just displayed what I was saying I was the whole time. Do you know, I think the accident highlighted the kind of person that I was telling people I was from a young age. And not that I was telling the people that I was this great person and whatever, but I was always talking about, like, you know, I was always saying the same messages, like just show up, work hard, you know, believe in yourself. That I've been saying that since I'm very young, like, you know, since I kind of start maturing as a man and undoing all my limiting beliefs that I may have subconsciously picked up from when I was younger. You know, when you grow up in a poverty-stricken area and, you know, everybody's just really fighting to survive where I'm from in D1, and, you know, you kind of grow up and you're in school and you're kind of always taught, like, oh, you know, you're just going to get by in life. You know, where I always just had bigger plans for myself. But that was, I had to undo all them kind of, like, the fixed mindset that I was kind of brought up to believe. No one ever taught me that. I had to kind of just look at the world and kind of realise, oh no, there's more to this than just kind of getting by in life, you know.
When did you start fighting? What age were you when you started fighting?
In MMA, I was 16, but like kind of talking, I was kind of always having little scuffles in the street, you know what I mean? Ground.
Yeah.
Just something that happens in, you know, in kind of places where you're from like that, because, you know, with bullies and stuff, it's just like you either fight or you just keep on getting bullied. And unfortunately for me, I was smaller and kind of, you know, kind of big teeth, and just kids are nasty, like, you know, and like even myself, like I would have said some stuff to other kids, you know, and you just think it's funny when you're a kid, and kids don't really think too much into it, but like very hurtful stuff, and some people would, and I think that's, I do talk about that, you know. I think I asked Willa why, the question before, I think is he a really good comedian, because it was like, you know, for me, it was a defense mechanism, you know. Like, I got really good at slagging, and people, like, I'd be like so sharp now with one line, or somebody will say something and I'll just rack back with like a one line on, kind of like have everybody in stitches. But I think that was a defense mechanism, because when you kind of, if you don't get good at slagging, you're just going to keep on getting slagged. Now, I suppose there is an element of, even with myself, you know, like, I love slagging people, like just having a joke and whatever. Like, it's that if you just sat around me and my friends, like Jesus Christ, we be lifting each other over. But be very conscious, I would be very conscious of people who don't initiate slaggings. You know, I say, like, yeah, I have to be able to handle everything, because I am someone who puts myself out there, and I'll slag people. But I also know people like my best mate Dylan. Dylan never slags anybody, so I would never slag Dylan. Or, you know, just he's just an example of somebody, like, you know, who I would never slag or whatever. But I think, it was the defense mechanism, you know. I just got really good at slagging people, you know.
Yeah, I have this theory I've had for such a long time, because we listen to stories like yours, which is, it was unbelievable. It's this inspirational story, overcoming the odds. It's incredible what you've managed to do, from being told you'd never walk again, you're back training, you're running, all that kind of stuff. Like, these stories are we hold them up sometimes to ourselves as beacons of what we want to be.
Yeah,
I wish I was like Ryan. Man, look what he's able to do. And from all the conversations I have, and I worked in kind of a medical space where people were struggling and stuff like that, it's the action steps that people always struggle with. And it's like it's like when you have a kind of a near miss or something in the car, you'll straighten up your driving for a day or two. So the story has a big impact on you, has an effect on you. Feel great. Well, I'm going to go training tomorrow, whatever it is. But after a couple of days, that kind of the inspiration factor kind of wears off a little bit.
Yeah.
So what I'm always interested in is like, with someone like yourself who's achieved something incredible, like outside of the norm of human capabilities, is there a certain number of steps in there that I can learn from, or like the average person can look at? Because I know you do a lot of advocacy for mindset, and you do a lot of talks and things like this, and you do speak about building up the skill set, developing resilience, changing your mindset and all that kind of stuff. Most people I speak to think that that's something that you're born with.
Yeah.
But like what you're describing for me there is a training ground. From a very young age, from where you grew up, you had to learn how to survive, and you had to battle your environment, and you were physically getting in fights, and you had to develop physical resilience. You developed like a sharp wit for like your own, to protect yourself emotionally and psychologically. So you were developing all these skills because of your environment, and all of those skills I could look at and go, they're probably skills I could learn how to do. But I didn't grow up there, so I never learned them.
Yeah, but it's kind of one of them things where you don't necessarily need to grow up there to develop them.
Agreed.
You know, and that's where people kind of sometimes go like, oh, well, how do I grow up in D1, which was voted the second worst place to live in all of Ireland? And, you know, some people say Palestine is safer, you know, but, and it's not, D1's like, for me, it's a magical place. There'd be nowhere else I would have rather grown up other than there, because that made me the person that I am. But you don't necessarily have to grow up in a place like that. What I say to people is, you just, the main reason why I'm in a position that I'm in is I'm just not afraid of failure. Like, you just have to embrace failure. And that's where all the lessons is. That's where all the learning is. But there's just so many people who are not willing to put themselves out there because they're just so afraid of failure. And they're not really afraid about failing at the task, whatever they're doing. They're just afraid about what other people think of them. But it's usually, if you actually ever sat down with yourself and thought, well, who is it that I really cared about? Who, you know, because it's never really a family who you cared about failing, is it? Because like your family just love you no matter what, you know, unless it's like you have a mom or dad and they've just always been on you, like, you know, when you're just so afraid to let them down, because you do hear the cases like that, you know, where like your parents have just been, I see it sometimes with fighting with young kids, that the parents are trying to live their dreams through the children. Do you know, I see that
vicariously through their kids,
I see that a lot, you know, and that's not right. I don't feel like, you know, because even with my daughter, I can say, like, I will tell her, like, I don't care about the result. You know, I love you whether you win whatever it is, the world championship, or you lose. I don't care. The result doesn't matter to me. What matters to me is you try your best and you just go out and embrace it. You don't care about failure, you know. And that's what it is with people that are just so afraid of failure. It's like, because there's so many people who talk about doing stuff all the time, you know, but then there's people who do the stuff. Like me, for example, like I'm a perfect example. I wouldn't be in this position if, and it's unfortunate, I'm gonna tell the truth, it's unfortunate, but I wouldn't be in this position if I didn't do everything that I said I was gonna do. So I probably wouldn't have this influence or have this say, if I'm going to be honest, if I was still lying in the bed or I was still in a wheelchair, because then I just wouldn't have done what I said I was going to do. And people really only admire you when you do what you say you're going to do. But there's so many people who talk about doing the stuff but never actually do it. Do you know what I'm saying? And the respect is earned through doing what you said you were going to do. And I've always, if I said I was going to do something, I would do it, or else try my best to do it. And ultimately I would do it, I would kind of complete it, because I was so unafraid of failure that if I'd done it a million times and it didn't work out, I just used to just think like, okay, well, that was them first million times were just ways that I shouldn't do it. And now I'm happy that I've, like, you know, I always say to people, if you are 50 failures away from your dreams, how fast would you want to fail?
Yeah.
You know, you'd want to just keep on going, okay, get that out of the way, get that out of the way, get that out of the way. And that's what success is. You have to fail your way to success. You know, but so many people are just, it's crazy because, again, I think I went off the point earlier, but it's like if you actually sit down and you think about the people who you are afraid, you know, you cared about what they think about your failing, or whether that be the general public. When you actually, if you actually sit down and imagine, like, give yourself like about 5 names and think, oh, they're the people who are probably laughing at me that I failed. They're usually not people who are doing well in their own life, and you're like, oh, they're actually not even doing. So if you actually sit down and you think about the people, specifically the names and everything else, it's like they're usually, because the kind of people who would kind of look down on somebody from failing, or like I always say, the loudest bills come from the cheapest seats. And that's so true, you know, like with me, nobody has ever hated on me for losing a fight or anything who's been doing better than me. It's never. It's usually somebody who's really unfit, unhealthy, drinking all the time, don't have their own life in order, because the successful and the people who are doing life well, they're too busy to be hating. Do you know what I'm saying?
And they were in your position once probably as well, so they understand where you are in the journey.
And what you mean?
Because if they're successful, they've been in a position where they were not successful, so they know what that's like.
Yeah.
And they also don't view you as a threat. So like you often hear that saying, people rarely punch down, they'll only punch up. Like, right, I want to break this because this is the bit that I really enjoy, right? Because I agree with you on all of that, by the way, and I think it's phenomenal how you're able to communicate that too. You're really clear on that. I could see it in your eyes as well. So I want to dig into that a little bit, that mindset piece, because this is where it gets very, very murky for people.
Okay.
Because we all love the mindset stuff. We read the books, listen to the podcast. Everybody loves it because it feels great and it's inspiring and motivating. But that stuff, as I said, dissipates over time. When someone goes back to their daily life, they'll hear what you've just said there and they'll think about their family member or someone who inspires them, and that'll motivate them to maybe go to the gym for a week if that's what they want to do, or to start that new business, or to whatever it is they're trying to do. But that stuff runs out, and that's what I think where people get very frustrated. What I hear from you and what I've come to understand is that there's a couple of elements to being able to move forward. You've mentioned the mindset and the emotional piece there, like having a reason to do it. That's really important. And you used Willa and yourself as an example there. So a lot of your reason at the start for changing or forcing change was defense, protecting yourself in the world, developing skills to stand up for yourself. And by doing that, you develop a different type of, you kind of develop a bit of resilience.
Yeah.
Because you start to like operate a little bit better in those spaces. You can defend yourself a little bit more. You gain a bit of confidence as well. So you have a reason. A lot of really successful sports people I meet, usually it's happened as a response to a negative experience in their life. They're going to prove somebody right or prove somebody wrong, and then that just transfers into that energy they need to make a change. And then they go and make the change and they have amazing careers. But there's something that happens at the start that motivates that. So there's the emotional bit and the motivating bit. And then there's the practical bit. Like, what is it? What is resilience and what is mindset and how do we do it? And I often think of fighters. I was never a fighter. I played football all my life, never a fighter. I regularly got involved in like fight clubs and stuff like that, and got the shit kicked out of me just to find out what is this thing. Like, I want to know what all these lads are doing. And I got a little taste of the mindset that these guys and girls have, and I've spoken to a couple of people like yourself who were at quite a high level. And what it seems to me is, whatever the reason that you got into fighting, some people because they were bullied or whatever, some people because they don't want to work a normal job. Adam was talking about this as well, me, like the fighters he works. I was just allergic to normal life. I'll go do this mental thing. Whatever the reason is, you get into this thing and you learn about failure really fast. Because you are failing every single day. You're getting the absolute bollocks kicked out of you constantly. Even in training, I know this from being a sports person as well, you're training to failure a lot of the time. You get really comfortable with failure. Like you do a session till you can't do the session anymore. You do pull-ups till you can't pull up anymore. You're failing constantly. And you start to realise it's actually nothing to be scared of. I remember the first time I was punched in the face.
Really?
And it changed everything about
was
me.
it like a fight, or?
It was like, I wouldn't even call it a fight. I know I didn't grow up in a rough area now, but it was, we were playing football on the street. I got in a bit of argy with somebody who was much bigger than I was. I gave him a bit of lip and he absolutely laid me out. And it was that moment completely changed how I thought about so many things in my life. I was like, that wasn't actually that bad. It hurt for a second, like, but I'm alive. And that just completely changed my mindset around like physicality and stuff like that. But I think you mentioned that a lot of people are afraid of failure. I don't know if a lot of us understand the mechanics of what that looks like, because it seems like a big, massive, scary monster to a lot of people, unless you've been punched in the face and you realize being punched in the face is not the worst thing that can happen anymore. Unless you've maybe lost your job and you realize, oh, I got another job and I actually like this job even better. So being in the fight game and being in the sport game is one way I've seen you can develop a skill set. And I was thinking about this when I was thinking about the interview with you. Why were you able to completely ignore all of the negative voices when this your own self-talk?
Yeah.
Maybe medical people saying to you, you never do this, you never do that. People, the media, whatever, saying, oh, it's all over, you're never going to walk again, all this kind of stuff. Why were you able to go, no, I can't do this? And my theory is because you've had so much exposure to failure already. So you have a skill set. Like you have a serious skill set there. How does that line up? Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, and you're on the money, because I know that I have failed so much that this was just another thing that I had to get through. And also as well, what I say sometimes is like, imagine having this superhero who you can, not a superhero, I'll take that back. Just imagine you have this really, really reliable person who you can ring at any hour of the day and they're always going to be there for you, no matter what the situation. I am that person for myself. Like I know, and that's why it was like when you were talking about there, like everybody, like some of the closest people to me was like, oh, this is really not good. And like I do talk about a funny story about me friend and business partner Rob. He came to visit me in the States in Texas, and he said, "Did you ever Google the symptoms of the comeback rates of any of this or this type of injury?" And I was like, no. And he was like, why? And I was like, because why do I need Google to tell me something that I already know? I am going to beat this and there's nobody going to tell me any different. And I know that. And he was like, I remember him just looking and nodding his head and he goes, that's a very psychotic answer. And I was like, it might be, but I just know, I know my ability to show up for myself like that and fighting, or whatever it may be. If I said to myself that I was going to go on a 30-mile run at 4 o'clock in the morning, I done it. Because, the more you say to yourself, you're going to do something, and the more you actually follow through with what you're going to say, the more you build up your mind. But the opposite is true. Oh, I probably shouldn't eat that pizza, but it's only one pizza, bang. That's a little thing. The boys are going out, and you know that you shouldn't be going out and partying with the boys because there's something else on. Yeah, but it's only a night out. The boys will just do it, bang. That's another little failure. Do you know what I mean? So, yeah. They're all little bits of failure that eventually seep into your mind, and then eventually seep into your subconscious, and then you become this unreliable person to yourself, But again, the opposite is true. And what I say to people is, you don't have to be David Goggins going on a 1,000-mile run or whatever. Start small, It's such a cliche thing, and I do love Jordan Peterson, but he always says it, but it's like, make your bed in the morning. If that's the only thing, and people always get caught up in the whole thing, how's making your bed in the morning going to change your life? And it's like, because it's literally doing something at the very beginning of the day that you might not want to do, and that's setting you up for the day. It's all about doing like the kind of things that you should be doing, but you're not doing them. Because we all have things that we know we should be doing, but we're just not doing them. But if you do the things that you shouldn't be doing, that's really leads you to success.
Yeah.
Because you don't depend on emotions then. It's discipline. You just do it anyway. It's like Nike, just do it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Nobody cares about what you're saying you're going to do and you're not going to do. Actions speak louder than words. And that's why throughout my whole life, it's like I don't listen to people who talk about doing stuff. I look at people who do the stuff.
Yeah.
And they're the people who I look at and I have respect for, not the people who talk this big game and then do fuck all. It's the people who talk, you know, and my favourite, to be honest, I'm going to be 100% truthful, my favourite people in the world are the cocky people who talk shit and say they're going to do this and do that and then do it.
They do it, yeah.
Do you know, they like, I just love people saying something like, and it was like, even with me, it was like, you have no idea I'm going to blow the lid off this whole thing with the injury and I'm going to be back down every single thing. And I purposely spoke like that and said like that. So when I eventually came through it, people would be like, I would almost be like, you know, nobody would have anything to say because I spoke it then, you know, and I spoke it so loudly and I said it so much with my chest that when I eventually do it, people were going to be like, oh, no way.
He told us he was going to
do
it.
it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's why I purposely said the stuff that I said to the doctors back then. Not about me getting back walking, about me getting back running and getting back doing everything. I didn't start going like, oh yeah, like, you know, we'll see what I can do and this, that. And it's like, no, I'm telling you what I'm going to do. Here and now, I'm telling you. Yeah. And when I eventually do it, which I know I will, now you're going to look back and go, oh, he was right. Do you know?
100%, yeah. There's a few nice things come up for me there while you're speaking. One, and I'm going to twist this quote now and have the exact words, but this comes up regularly. Self-belief isn't about shouting affirmations in the mirror. It's about doing something over and over again until you are the person you say you are. That's a real ad-lib version
Alex
of it. Hormozy says he has his own version of it. I've heard this a million different ways.
Thought he said it.
He's probably the latest version of it. He has a slightly different way of saying it, but it's not about saying something. It's about doing something over and over and over again until you prove to yourself that you're that person. And that's when you have self-belief. You believe in yourself. You're the person that you could phone any time of the day.
Because that's it. You're not proving it to anybody else. You're proving it to yourself.
Proving it to yourself. Exactly. You know? Yeah, 100%. I think also, again, just from like thousands of conversations around this type of stuff, people have this, there's a gap in the table here between us. People see this chasm between themselves and Ryan Chaos Curtis overcoming this mad injury or this mad mindset they see. But what they don't see and understand, and I only do because I talked to you about it, is that what happened then wasn't the result of what happened then, and this like eureka moment where the angels came out and sang at you and you floated up off the bed.
Yeah.
It was years, hundreds of hours of practice.
Absolutely.
You didn't know you were practicing for that moment.
Yeah.
But you were practicing getting your shoes on. You were practicing going to the gym. You were practicing taking a fella's fucking jab to the chin. You were practicing rolling on the floor. You were practicing going to work. Like you were just doing this over and over and over again. And that's what developed a lot of the self-belief, as well as your environment and your characteristics and your personality.
Yeah, other stuff, but other stuff too.
But that's what built it. And I think when we look at these big achievements we see with people, whether it's a huge success in business or sport or whatever it is, or something incredible like what you've done, we just see a massive chasm between this inspiring person and me, little old me sitting here. But all really I have to do is have put my shoes on the next day and go for that walk that I was telling myself. I don't have to go run a marathon tomorrow. If I want to run 1,000 miles, I can. But all I have to do tomorrow is just get up and put the shoes on.
Absolutely.
Then I have to do it the next day.
Absolutely.
And then I have to do it the next day. So I think breaking it down into its like constituent parts becomes a little bit more digestible for me, rather than, I have to, like, I think to myself, if that happened to me, I wouldn't get out of bed. But I do know there's probably a load of stuff I've done in the background that would kick in at that point.
Absolutely.
And I'd be able to lean on it because I've done things I'm very proud of and I have a level of confidence and competence in myself. But when I look at you, it's about connecting those pieces. Am I doing the things that will allow me to achieve the thing I want to achieve, become that better person, build a resilient mindset? Because there's a set of things you can do.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. But the thing about it is what I say to everybody is, I'm no more special than anybody. If I'm, like, especially even in fighting, like I was at a physical disadvantage, you know, people were way more athletic than me. I was an athlete, but I wasn't athletic. You know, there's a big difference, you know. Some people just have muscles popping out of muscles and like Popeye. That was never me. You know, so there's like what I'm saying, it's not like I was physically gifted and it's like, oh yeah, that's how you came back. There's nothing special about me except that I just refused to give up. And that's all.
Do you think you were mentally gifted? Or do you think you built that?
I'd like to say I built it. you know, there's definitely, when you're born into a certain environment, it definitely shapes you to be a certain way. But again, you can't, if you don't grow up in that environment, then it's not like that you can just say, oh well, I can never get to that level. I've probably had to develop some of that through just growing up where I've grown up, and like growing up in the family that I have. And you know, we weren't the richest family, we grew up in poverty, kind of, you know. So there's definitely some things that force you to be that kind of thing, but it's also, I don't want the people listening that doesn't come from that background to think, oh well, you know, I wasn't born there, so I can never develop that, because that's not true. You know, there's millions of ways you can you know, develop resilience rather, and life will do that for you anyway, because life is peaks and valleys. You know, that's why, you know, especially poor people, I do know, is they think that money's just gonna solve all their problems, and it's like, no, it just solves all your money problems. Because then when you talk to people with a lot of money, they're like, oh yeah, but you know, my wife's sick, and my daughter is going through this, or my son is going through that, or, you know, like for me, for example, I could have been a billionaire when this happened to me. Do you think them billions would have changed any one thing for me lying in that bed? Because it absolutely wouldn't. Might have had a fluffier pillow, but other than that, like, it wouldn't have really made any difference.
Yeah.
Do you know?
100%. What you're saying there is exactly why I love this, because whether you grow up if you grow up in an environment like you did, it's almost forced. And now it's not a given, because we spoke about this earlier on. It's not a given that you're going to turn out as somebody with a very strong mindset. Because if you grow up in a tough area, you grow up with a victim mindset.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So it's not just a given. You still have to have the attitude of, I'm going to change this. Even if you grow up as a millionaire trust fund kid or whatever, I hear you talk about this sometimes as well. You can go looking for these opportunities to grow. You can find opportunities to grow everywhere.
Absolutely.
Because there's challenge everywhere in life, whether you've got millions or you don't have millions. And now there are different challenges for sure. I'm not trying to compare the two, but how you look at those challenges, I think, shapes a lot of how you grow. Because as I said, if you grow up in poverty, you could become a victim for the rest of your life, or you could decide, I'm going to change something, and you can keep taking action until it changes. If you grow up in the billionaire you mentioned earlier on, you could just cruise for the rest of your life and just not engage in any challenge. Or you could decide, right, I'm going to actually have a little look inside here and see are there ways to grow. And that's the growth mindset you mentioned. And everyone's familiar with this idea of fixed and growth mindset. But I think, again, we think it's something that we're born with.
Yeah.
Because no, you can learn this stuff.
No,
you can actually learn how to change your
absolutely.
life. But you have to be willing to listen to the lessons, I think.
Yes.
And a lot of them lessons don't come from the outside. Some do, like when you grew up and you had to defend yourself on the streets.
Yeah.
They're external lessons. If I don't learn how to throw fists here, I'm going to get beaten up. And some are internal. Something comes up for you, you have a decision to make, or an opportunity arises, and you can decide,
yes, I'm
going to do this thing that's uncomfortable or not.
Yeah, because it's all about perspective, you know, like it's like, okay, because I always say life is 10% of what happens to you and 90% of how you react to what happens to you.
100%.
And it's so true, you know, because there's just so many different instances that you can take something that, again, happens to you, you know, like, so what can I do? I grew up in day one, you know, we don't have money, we don't get support, you know, the list is endless, you know, but at the end of the day, you can frame it that way and go, well, I better not even try because there's nothing I can do.
Can't win, don't try.
Or else you can look at it and go, yeah, but that's all unfortunate and whatever, but what do I do? You know, it's like, what I do say is, the same pot that softens the potato hardens the egg. Do you know?
Never heard that one before. That's a good one.
Okay, so it's like, basically, you know, you can take, I chose my perspective on growing up in day one, I chose to take all the hardships and turn it into a positive. You know, it's like, when I was growing up, I was able to reflect back on everything, and then it's just like, I just thought, like, okay, well, I'm going to take a positive from that, and that built my resilience, and it built so many great things from me. You know, like, same way people always come to me now about MMA and go like, oh, geez, like, you know, it's such a dangerous sport and whatever, like, and this and that, and so many people talk to me about that all the time, and it's like, if I was still paralyzed from the neck down, MMA has given me more than it has ever taken away from me. And that's the truth. And I really believe that, like, and I really mean it also. You know, it's just given me so much. So you can look at it in a certain light, or else, and take the positives, or else you can go the victim route and go, oh yeah, you know, look, you know, it paralysed me from the neck down. It was awful. You know, I didn't get the big payday. I didn't get to the big show that I was looking to get then. You know, there's so many things you can either look at it as a positive or a negative. And I feel like the people who excel in life are always taking the positives rather than the negatives. You know, because something bad happens to you, like, with me all the time, if something bad happens, even after the accident or whatever, it's like I sit down and I try and reflect, okay, you know, that was a shitty situation, but what good came from that? You know, and I really have to think deep and hard, and because there's always good that can come from something. It's just how your brain perceives things and looks at things and go, okay, can I get better from this? Or else am I just going to pity myself and sit around and hope something changes when it's not? Nothing's ever going to change. Do you know, if you're not grabbing the bull by the horns and taking control of your life, you know, there's nobody coming for you.
Yeah.
You know?
Pain is inevitable. Suffering is optional.
Exactly.
Buddhist thing. Like,
yeah, I like that.
The pain is coming one way or the other. It doesn't matter what it is. Someone's going to pass away. You're going to get sick. You lose your job. You get knocked down by a bus. You have a training accident. That's coming for all of us.
Everybody. It doesn't matter who you are.
It doesn't matter who you are. But suffering is optional, and suffering is the perspective piece.
Yeah,
how you decide
absolutely.
to look at that. That is, it's the obstacle is the way. It's all these different phrases that are lovely to describe this. The challenge is going to present itself, and you're not going to be able to step around it. So you have to decide how you're going to tackle it. I'm going to tackle it head on, bull by the horns, as you said.
But it's like, you know, that picture. Did you ever see a buffalo in the storm?
No.
So everybody else runs away from the storm, but the buffalo runs towards the storm, and the storm passes quicker.
Because he breaks through it.
Yeah. Do you know, because the storm's coming for you, and the more you're trying to run away from the storm's coming after you.
Yeah.
But if you turn and face it head on, and it's such a good analogy because it's so true. You need to face your problems and stop running away from them, because, you know, as well, what I say to everybody is you can lie to every single person in the world, but you can't lie to yourself. And you still have to put your head down on the pillow during the night, and you still have to live in your own head, you know. So you need to face your problems head on. We all would probably some days want to just pull the covers over our heads and just pretend like stuff's not happening or stuff's not going on, but that's not going to make the stuff go away. And that's the reality. And that's why I'm going to be 100% truthful. I'm very harsh sometimes in the way I say things and I approach things, because I don't have time for victims. I just really have I have kind of like compassion and empathy for people, and if something's going wrong, I do feel it for them, you know, but ultimately pity gets you nowhere. Because if you pity somebody, you're just giving them the right to wallow and load in it, and it's that, you know, it just doesn't do anything for you. It's not going to fix your problems. You sitting there and telling everybody like how you're so unfortunate and this shouldn't have happened to you and that shouldn't happen to you, you know, and you might be right, it is unfair, but life's unfair. Everybody's going through something. You're not special because you're at having setbacks. That's life. Life is peaks and valleys. You're going to have a string of seasons of your life where you're on top of the world and you think nothing's ever going to bring you down. And then you're going to be down in the pits and you think, how can my life even get better from here? You know, but as soon as you recognize that and you understand that about life, that life is peaks and valleys. And I always say, like, don't let the winds get to your head, and don't get the losses get to your heart, you know, and that's the truth. You know, when you're winning, you're not the best thing since sliced bread, and when you're losing, you're not the worst. You know, it is what it is.
Yeah.
You know, and you just have to recognize you're at where you're at, and if you're not doing too well in life, you have to sit down and just reevaluate. You know, and don't just try and run away from it and pretend these things aren't happening, because that's not going to change anything. And that's why people need to hear that message, because pity is not going to fix anything. You know, we can all sit around and go, oh, life's unfair, this, that, and that. Nobody cares.
Yeah.
You're the only one who really cares when excuses sound best to the people making them. And that's the truth.
That's the truth, yeah.
Your
situation is what a lot of people would probably describe as one of the worst things that could happen to somebody. It's Everton's perspective, there's lots of bad things happen to lots of people all the time. That's a very challenging situation, right? And a lot of people would say that. With your perspective of having gone through something like that, I know we talked about like you were developing a really, really robust mindset on the way to that anyway.
Yes.
And this was another step on your journey. How do you look at the modern landscape of the world today when it comes to victim mentality and pity and self-pity? Do you think it's going in a good direction? Do you think it's going in a bad direction? What's your read on it?
I just think I think there is a lot of people struggling now mentally, but it's just that there's too many people entitling other people to pity and to self-loathing it.
Like enabling.
I think a lot of that goes on. Like there's a lot of enabling, and like somebody like me is like I openly talk about like I'm a man, and there's plenty of days where I woke up crying. Like I do talk about like for so many months after the accident, I remember just waking up all the time and looking at the ceiling and going, "Oh no, it's not a dream. This is your life." Because I just wanted it to be a dream so bad, because I was like, how is this had to happen to me? Like, I'm on top of the world 1 minute, and then it took 2 seconds to end everything, So, like, it wasn't like I wasn't feeling it, but I just knew that sitting there and pitying and, not doing anything about it wasn't going to change anything. So I'm not telling people not to feel the feelings. It's absolutely so important that you feel the feelings, but you also need to just feel the feelings, sit with your emotions, but go up and do something about it.
Yeah.
Like I'm not telling anybody to try and suppress your emotions or whatever. And like I said, there was plenty of days where like I'd be crying down workouts. Like I used to say to the trainers in America, oh, just need a break over here, I'll be back in a second, and I'd be in my wheelchair and I'd be over in the corner crying, and then I'd wipe my tears off and go, right, the slaves are getting rolled back up, let's fucking go. I'm not telling anybody that, especially as a man, you should talk about these things, because obviously suicide rates are so high within men, and I think that's from not talking and feeling like you can't talk, or feeling like that if you do show emotion that it's wrong, because it's not. But man or woman, it doesn't matter that you can still feel your emotions, but you have to do something about it. And I feel like there's too much enabling now, where it's like I see a lot of the time in the world now, it's almost cool to be a victim, and that's absolutely not okay, because there's nothing cool about being a victim. It's like, again, you might have been hard done by, and that's fine, but you sitting around crying about how much you have been hard done by is not going to change your life, and it's not. But I feel like, and it might be a controversial take, but I feel like people make a life from being a victim, so they want to continue to be a victim, because you need to also understand that there is a market for victims, where other victims enable other victims, and it's like, yeah, it's bizarre to me, but that's because I will never get that thought process, because I'm not that kind of person, so I just think that mental health is at an all-time high, but there's just so many people enabling victims, That's what I really believe.
Do you think that environment you're in, right, when you're involved in sports, you get an element of this? I've often had this fascination with combat sports, a fascination with it, because it's the closest thing we have now to like warriors.
Yeah, gladiators.
Like gladiators. Guys and girls stepping into like a cage with each other to fight with no help. You're in there by yourself. You're a gladiator. Like,
Yeah.
I think there's two elements, right? I don't want to completely glorify that, because in a lot of cases, as I said, there's guys who would admit they're running away from something by just going 100% into the physical world, into the cage, fight their demons physically, so they don't have to fight them emotionally or spiritually.
Yeah.
That's fine. But I think what it represents is going toe to toe with something. And you're afraid. I'm assuming every time you step in that cage, you're afraid. Like,
Absolutely.
It's not that you're not afraid.
Yeah,
it's that you have to fight through the fear and do it anyway. But I think that there's a respect and a community within that space, that anybody who's done something like that recognizes someone else who's willing to do something, is willing to get into a cage and fight somebody else. And there's almost like a brotherhood and a sisterhood and a family, a camaraderie. You learn lessons off each other. You get support if you're struggling. I've seen that community just fucking bind up together to protect people in that community. You look at the average person now who maybe doesn't have a sport or a community or even a family, and they're isolated, and they just find other people like this on the internet. I think a lot of what we're seeing now, and this emergence of people who do wallow in maybe the victim mentality, it's a result of, one, a complete disruption of our community mechanism. We don't have communities really anymore. We have individuals. We have a world full of individuals, and then we have this fake mirror community, which is social media, but we feel like we're part of something, but really we're all just drawn to the elements of ourselves we see in other people.
Yes.
And the platform facilitates that. It literally groups us all together based off what we interact with and what we consume and all that kind of stuff. How much of how you operate now, and how much, because you have such conviction with this message, how much of that do you think comes from having had that really tight-knit community around you, both before when you were fighting and training, even if it wasn't really obvious? It's definitely there in sport. And then obviously after the accident as well, there was a huge coming together of the community too. How much of how you feel about this do you think is driven by that? And how much of that do you think we're missing in the modern world as civilians, I suppose I'll call it, but non people who don't maybe have a sporting community like that?
Yeah, because it's, as well, it's so prevalent and fighting because everybody's chasing the same dream, and everybody knows how tough it is to achieve that dream. And there's so many setbacks to that dream, and then when you win, you're the best thing since sliced bread, and then when you lose, you're a piece of shit. That's the way you're made feel when you're a fighter. You're only worth something when you're winning. And I think the people inside that community, because it's the fans who make you feel that way. Fans are so fickle.
Yeah.
And I think when you do the sport, we can all identify with each other that it's so tough to be even doing what we're doing in the first place. And if you go 0 and 100 in your fights, you've still balls for getting in there, because there's so much respect to just getting in there. You're so vulnerable in there because you're literally putting yourself in front of an audience to be on someone's highlight reel for the rest of your life. There's an option when you step in that cage that there's going to be a clip of you getting replayed, getting knocked out all over the place, depending if it goes viral or not, if you get knocked out for the rest of your life. And that's always going to be out there. So, there's so much respect for people to even just do it in the first place. And I think fighters and people like that recognize that, and that's why they're so supportive of each other, because they know that without even winning a fight, how difficult it is to just step in there. But in terms of other people, it's people say there's strength in numbers, but for me, there's weakness in numbers, because people just want to band together to be a part of something, but sometimes that's a band of sheep getting together to just wanting to be a part of something, do you know what I mean? And don't get me wrong, there's good and bad communities, but we're talking about, with the victim community, it's just victims enabling other victims. Or it might be a certain community are there to just oppress other people who don't align with their views. There's just so much of that these days, but it takes so much courage to stand alone and speak for what you want, you know, as opposed to just agreeing with the narrative or whatever because you feel like that's what you should be doing, and you are just kind of agreeing with people because you want to be a part of something. That's what I feel sometimes with group identity and stuff. It's like sometimes people don't even necessarily agree with what they're saying, but they just want to be a part of something. Do you know what I mean by that?
100%.
So
That's where the kind of compassionate side of me tries to come through, because most of these groups and these messages and the enabling comes from what you've just described there. It's just a desire to be connected and accepted. That's what we all want. Like fundamentally, we just want to be accepted and loved, and we want that level of connection with other people. And I think the challenge we have nowadays is the online space, and it's usually the banner that we all unite under becomes the problem. So, like, if you're a community because you all like sea swimming, that's very non-problematic. Like, it's good for you, and it's going to be feel goods, and we go and have our sea swims and all that kind of stuff. But if it becomes politically motivated or socially motivated or culturally motivated, it gets a little bit trickier there.
Yes.
And I think you're right. I think it's usually just the minority of loud voices in those groups end up dictating what the banner is and what the badge is that we wear. And most people just don't argue because they want to go along with it. But that doesn't, what I'm always really frustrated by is that serving you? Are you happy? Like, does it, because when I know from being part of sport my entire life, I've groupthink with my group and with the lads, and we have a mission together and all that kind of stuff, but it serves me.
Yeah.
I'm a better man because of it. I step back objectively and go, they make me better. They push me harder. I go home to my family a better dad, a better partner, a better friend, a better business owner, because these lads are down here pushing me.
And they're holding you accountable.
Yes. So there's a net positive for me. But with a lot of the other stuff I see, if we're arguing online and we're being the victim and we're pointing fingers and stuff, in what way does that serve me?
Yeah, but you understand like that with somebody who enjoys to be a victim, they don't think that it's serving them anyway. Do you know, like, it's like, because they're just being enabled the whole time by other people, other victims, telling them that they're completely right. I mean, imagine like you not surrounding yourself with people who hold you accountable for your actions. It's like, oh no, everybody else is wrong and you're right. And then that's constantly getting reinforced by your group. But sometimes I think it's a subconscious thing that people put themselves in groups like that because they want people to tell them how great they are or how they're not wrong or whatever, where I'm the opposite. I'm like, if my friends are not telling me that I shouldn't have done X, Y, and Z, they're not holding me accountable for stuff, I'm like, yous are not even my mates. You know, like, I need people, I don't need yes men around me. I need people going, you fucked up on that one, Ryan. Like, what's that all about? Because I'm that friend. I'm the friend who's going to ring you and I'm going to be like, what the fuck?
And this is my point, right? Because I 100% agree with you. I don't think people enjoy being a victim. I think they enjoy the feeling they get from the acceptance of the group.
Yes.
But the reason I think you're the person you are is because you know now, you've lent so many times into accountability and responsibility and challenge and failure. You now absolutely know that the answer isn't a yes man. The answer, yes man might feel good in the short term, but in the long term, you're going to suffer. Because the whole time you were growing up, if you just took the praise or whatever, you'd never improve. We were talking, were we on mic or off mic? I think we were off mic. We were talking about sharing information with other people. Because we were talking about, like, I'll tell anybody how I do any of this podcast stuff here, or the cameras that are set. I'll tell everybody. Because I don't view that as any sort of threat to me.
Yeah,
it's
you're
just,
not keeping secrets.
I'm not keeping secrets. And you said to me, you smiled and said in the fight game, it was the same for you. You tell people how to do some of the techniques that you were doing, so then they could use it against you, or they could figure out your techniques and you'd have to level up. Because you knew after just time and time again of doing this, that every time that happened, you'd get better. So now you have that same mindset as well. And I suppose why I keep bringing it back to this point and hammering this point is, if someone is sitting at the moment, because everyone knows, you're not, even if you're, that's why I don't think people enjoy being in those groups, but it serves a purpose for them and they don't know the other way to do it because they've never had anyone show them. They've never had to figure it out. They've never had an obstacle where they've overcome it.
Yeah, but it's, sorry to cut you off, but it's also people just don't enjoy being told that they're wrong. you need to understand that there's also people who are like that.
Oh
Because-
yeah. Well, I don't enjoy being told I'm wrong.
no, but
I know
that's what I'm saying, and
there's growth.
that's what I was gonna get there. Sorry, because it's not like anybody enjoys to be,
No.
nobody. It's uncomfortable be told, oh, you messed up there, or you didn't do that right, and you didn't do that, and you're kind of like, fuck's sake, like he's right, But there's some people who just really they dislike that, and they'd rather just people just go with them. So you need to understand that not everybody wants to be in a place where they're grown, or I'm sure no, let me take that back. I'm sure that everybody does want to be in a place where they're grown and they're elevating as a person, but they're not willing to do it at the cost of being told they're wrong.
Yeah. I do agree. I don't disagree with the point that you're making. It's short-term comfort versus long-term gain.
Yes.
It's always the same thing. And we have a crisis of comfort, the comfort crisis at the moment. It's comfortable, and we're biologically wired for that. We're not wired to look for the harder route.
Absolutely.
We're wired to look for the easy route. And now we have all this abundance. It's like, oh Jesus, I can have all the chocolate I want. I can sit down and watch TV. I can watch 20 Netflix series.
Yeah.
Fucking right, I'm going to do that. And always what I'm trying to get this back to, because I agree with everything you're saying, by the way, we're very aligned on all this, but what I want to always try and get back to is what if we can because for me it's always about awareness first, so you have to develop some sort of awareness about this. Sometimes in your situation the awareness is it's literally slapping you in the face. You're literally getting slapped in the face. You're like, I have to change, or I'm going to keep getting slapped in the face. And sometimes it's not so obvious, but it's still there. If I'm the billionaire, I'm going to be miserable for the rest of my life because I've no sense of purpose. That's going to slap me in the face. And I have two options. I can just go down the route of hedonism and just keep buying more pleasure, short-term pleasure. I can buy all the drugs and all the sex and all the rock and roll I want. But that's short-term gain for long-term pain. I'm going to be more miserable on the other end of that. So the opportunity is there for most of us. But the awareness around the opportunity, I think a lot of us miss that awareness. Like if you're in a group and everyone's shouting at one thing and it doesn't really feel right to you, most people know that feeling. But the short-term pleasure of someone liking your Instagram post is much nicer than actually having to say, do you know what, I don't really agree with this, but all my mates think it's one thing. Like that's a really uncomfortable situation that I've been in many times. And it's only in the last part of my life now that I've really understood the benefits. I always was a little bit of a rogue kind of. I don't know why. There was something there with me. I was always a little bit uncomfortable with the kind of the normal route.
Yes.
But it's only in the last while now I actively lean into the opposite side, just because I have that proof we talked about. I've just done it so many times now. I'm like, the answer's if they're all saying A, the chances are the answer's B. I'm not contrarian just for the sake of it, just disagreeing.
Of course.
But if the easy option is right there, I'll probably have a look at the other one first, because but I only know that from reps now.
I know, but you also need to realise, like, when you look at what everybody else is doing, they're not living, they're probably not getting the results that you want. You know, like, let's be honest, I know obviously this is kind of an extreme version of top of the food chain or whatever, but like Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, they all went against the narrative. They weren't doing what everybody else was doing. So, I mean, how can you expect to do what everybody else is doing and expect a different result? It's insane.
The definition of insanity, really.
Honestly, and it's, I know that is the definition, and it's you need to be willing to go against the norm I suppose you don't really need to be if you don't want to live an extraordinary life. But I think everybody has some grand desire to live an above average life, I would say.
Yeah, I would maybe use different language. I think everybody has a desire to live an aligned life, a life that aligns with their values. And I've been very, very regular about saying I don't think most of us know what our values are. So it's very hard to be aligned with something we don't even fully understand what it is, because we're so distracted and we're so comfort seeking. We never take a moment to think, like, what are my actual values?
Sit down and
and like, I know you've said this many times before, and it was something I want to talk about anyways. There's a nice bridge into it. You talked about when you were lying in the bed thinking about your daughter the whole time, and it became really clear to you what your values are in that moment where you're about to lose everything, or you could lose everything. You think about your daughter. And most people don't ever get an opportunity to do that until they're on their deathbed. And it's the cliche, like, should have spent time with my family. Wish I didn't work so hard. And I think the advantage we have now is there's so many people saying this to us now. Like we don't live in small communities where maybe one old person is dying every couple of years and they might say this and like, sure, he was mental anyway. Every day you can read books on this. Like people are saying the same things when they get to the end of their lives. These are the things I wish I spent more time on. And most humans, in my opinion, have pretty similar fundamental values: connection, love, and family. Most people.
Because that's what we are, like, are our foundations. Yeah, you know, as human beings, that's what we want, and that's what we are. We want connection. We want love. There's a reason why it feels so good to be around your family and stuff like it. You have that overwhelming sense of love when you're around the people who you care most about. But it's like, my kind of thing is, sometimes I scratch my head because I'm like, how many people do you have to hear saying the same stuff before you go, maybe they're right? You know, that's why sometimes I don't understand. And that's why, again, like even with me and things, like I look at certain people and go, why are you going to do the same things that you know is not going to serve you when you're looking at people who are not doing them things and they're living the life that they want to live, and they're living the life that you want to live, but you're just not copying what they're doing, or you're not copying what they're they're saying, rather. You know, like, how many people do you have to hear on their deathbed talking about, like, you know, I wish I had done this, I wish I had done that. Why are you not doing what them people are saying?
I have my theories on this, right? This is stuff I talk about all the time.
Right.
I don't think, and you actually pointed to early on as well, if you're looking at other people's success, that's not necessarily aligned with what you want.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, what we all get distracted by is material success. Yeah. And we think those people are happy. You mentioned Elon Musk. He's very public about saying, if you could see inside my head the absolute shitstorm that I live, no one would want this.
Yeah.
He's very public. And a lot of really successful people would say that. But I think we're conditioned to look at the outcome and think that that equals the happiness. Whereas most people, let's keep it in the sporting realm actually, because this is quite relevant. Most people who've achieved really, really high level success in their sport, when they get the thing, they become very depressed, gold medal syndrome, because it was actually the process that they loved. It was the connection, the community, the work, the purpose. That's what really filled them up. But on the journey, they were just focused on the outcome and they were really successful. They got the outcome, but it was never the outcome. It was the journey.
I know, but what's the worst part of a video game, or what's the worst
end,
part
it's
of
over.
it? It's done.
You've no more sense of purpose. But my theory on why the messages, why I can listen to 20 Ryan Curtis podcasts and not get off my couch, is because I don't have an emotional connection with what you're saying, because I haven't actually figured out what I'm aligned with yet. Yeah. As soon as I take some time, because I've been doing a lot of this work personally lately, it's mind-blowing, right? As soon as I really start to do a little bit of digging inside and say, like, what do I actually care about? Because most of what I think I care about, when I sit and think about it, I actually don't.
Yeah.
But it's too scary. It's because you mentioned the storm and the buffalo earlier. It's a perfect analogy for all this shadow work people talk about. We run away from the dark sides of us because we're terrified. But in that storm is also all the stuff that makes us joyful. It's like, beside the fear and the shame is the love. So if we can't stop and actually think about all of that and absorb all that and look at all that, we'll never fully figure out what we actually want in life. And until I know what lights me up really, I'm never going to be able to emotionally connect with what you say. But as soon as I start to develop a bit of an identity within myself around the things that I'm aligned with, my real values. For me, one is fatherhood. When I heard you say that about your daughter, I was like, fuck, I want more of what he is, just now so dedicated to his daughter. I want more of that. So if he can do that, I can do that too. Because all of a sudden you're talking about something that I'm deeply connected to.
Yes.
So that's the emotional gap we spoke about at the start.
Yeah, because we're emotional creatures.
Because we're completely emotional creatures. And then on top of that, I can build all the skills. So then I could look at Ryan and go, right, it wasn't the accident that made him this. He trained every day. He said he was going to do something and he stuck by his word. He was honest. He worked really hard. He took care of his body. These are all practical things I can start doing.
Yeah.
But I have an emotional reason that's going to keep me going on a cold fucking Thursday
it's like
morning.
Viktor Frankl's book, A Man's Search for Meaning.
Yeah, 100%.
You know, and that's it. But with the like the kind of emotional thing, it's like, you know, my version of success might not be other person's, you know, version of success and whatever, you know, but it's like you have to sit down with yourself and really have a lot of hard conversations with yourself, and like what you're saying, what are your morals? What are your values? That's stuff that you need to, like, you know, I've sat with myself loads of times and had days, I'd be a very deep thinker anyway, you know.
Before or after the accident?
Before and
Did you
after.
do it before?
Yeah.
How did you learn how to do that? Why did you do that? Like, sit with yourself?
I don't, because I've just always been a very deep thinker, and, you know, like, even, like, you know, one observation that I think I made when I was about 25, you know, I remember sitting in my house one day and I was like, you know, fighting is going to come to an end for you one day. This is me having a conversation in my own head, and it's like, you know, everybody has to retire. And I never made my self-identity about being a fighter. I'm so much more. I used to say to myself back then, I'm so much more than a fighter. Like, I'm a great father. You know, obviously I wasn't a father back then, but, you know, I'm a good family man. I'm a good friend. I'm somebody who you can rely on. I'm somebody who's gonna be there for you. You know, I'm so much more than a fighter. So I never, and that's why I think that I never really got depressed even after this, when it was all taken away from me in the blink of an eye, because I had already accepted that it was going to come to an end someday, and also that I never wrapped my identity up in just being a fighter. Because, yeah, I walk down the street now and people might know me as like, oh, Ryan Chaos Curtis the fighter, or Ryan Curtis the guy who came back from this injury that everybody told him that he wasn't. But I'm so much more than them things, you know. So I had to sit with myself years ago and identify what my values and morals were, and then even more so to another different stratosphere after the accident. Because the reason why was, when I was feeling shit during the accident, I couldn't go to me normal, get up and go to the gym and sweat all the pain out of me and whatever else. I had to lie there and not even be able to move my fingers and sit with my thoughts. You know, so that was so much of a learning experience and a learning curve for me, because, yeah, I am somebody who likes to face the storm head on, but don't get me wrong, there's times where I'm like, oh, my head's just melted, I just need to get away from this for a while. Thankfully for me, from my whole life, I've never really drank or done drugs, so my escape was a positive escape, as in going to the gym. But
it's still an escape.
Yeah, it's still an escape, yeah, but it's like, it's a better escape than,
for sure,
other things.
Yeah.
You know, so that's how I used to justify it. But because I had no escape when I was paralysed from the neck down, I had to do so much, you know, self-reflection and just deep thinking, you know. But I am a deep thinker and I enjoy that, you know. So that's something that I would say, again, like, that's another positive for me getting paralysed from the neck down. Like, there was no way that I ever would have had to go to that level of within myself and sit with my emotions and sit with my thoughts for that such a prolonged period of time. Because if that had been the old me, I would have just been like, oh, my head's melted, come on, I just go to the gym.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying?
I know exactly what you're saying. It's weird, right? Because I was having this thought the other day. I was thinking about you. I think we were sending voice notes back and forth, and I just thought came into my head. This is one of those things, I don't know, can you say this? But you said it there now, so now I can't say it. When something like that happens, it's obviously terrible. And you wish it didn't happen. However, there's a massive bonus, you call it positive there, of having to sit with your own thoughts, when for so long most of us run from our thoughts or distract from our thoughts, even if that distraction is positive. And that's what I was saying earlier on about meeting successful athletes. A lot of the time they achieve insane things, and you were on course to achieve insane things in the fight game. But it was still leaving a certain part of your, because you can't do both, really, I don't think. I don't know, can you be like single-mindedly focused on this really difficult goal and also spend a load of time being really introspective and doing deep work? Because I think that just pulls the edge off this really intense thing that you're trying to do. And the only reason I say that is because most of the people I've met who are, specifically in sports, really successful, they have a little bit more emotional work to do, because they've just kind of put it on the side because they're focused on this thing. And you see the same with alcoholics, and you see the same with people that did the food, people that did the work. It's the same thing. This thing is over here and we know it's here, but I'm going to focus on this thing instead. But you had this accident where you had to lie and literally just be in your own head for so long. And I was thinking the other day, there's a strange positive to that in today's world anyway.
Absolutely.
Because you get all this time to actually look at the thoughts. And to your point earlier on, that could go either way. You could become a victim to your thoughts and get very depressed.
Yeah.
Which I'd fully understand, obviously.
Absolutely. Even me being true, I fully understand it.
Fully understand it. Or the second arrow, you decide not to suffer and you decide, right, I'll sort through all this fucking stuff going through my head here now and I'll figure out what way I'm going to move forward and I'll take action on that, which is mental to think about, that there's a positive element to what happened to you.
But again, perspective. There's always a positive element to everything. Do you know, but like even what you're going back to with the athletes, it's not necessarily that they're not dealing with that stuff sometimes, I think, or they don't want it, they haven't got the time to confront that sort of stuff. But sometimes them kind of that kind of stuff is dragging them towards being a world champion because they're looking for like validation or whatever.
Yeah.
Do you know?
This is kind of my point. I spoke to a guy once, very successful golfer, and he was saying, the thing that motivates me to be this golfer, I know it's not necessarily it's improving myself here. And if I became fully at peace with myself, I wouldn't need to prove myself.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't go to do the golfing.
Yeah.
It's like I'm fully aware of that. And he says, but he told me most people in the high successful rooms, they just ignore that fact.
No.
Because this is the route to happiness. I'll be happy when. And that's why the gold medal syndrome hits so hard. When they get to the top of the mountain, they're like, fuck.
Yeah.
The thoughts are still fucking there. It didn't make it all go away. All these people pretend they love me because I'm amazing and all this kind of, and they achieve something. Now, let me be really clear about this. The things everybody achieves are outrageous.
Yes.
In full respect. I'm not trying to take anything away from the achievements. But he was telling me, in a lot of cases, that's just the fuel that we're using to get us here.
Yeah.
And if we took a minute to really become at one with ourselves, we wouldn't need to do any of this stuff, because a lot of it is just chasing what we think is
I
the love.
completely agree.
Yeah. I'm not saying that's the case now with you.
No, I know, absolutely. But like, even with myself, like I enjoy proving people wrong.
100%.
Like I actually do. I probably enjoy proving myself right more. I probably enjoy that more, but I definitely enjoy proving people wrong. Like, you know, I'm somebody, like, you tell me I can't do it, okay.
Yeah.
You know, I take it personal when you tell me. You know, I talk about this all the time. I took it personal when them doctors were telling me that I wasn't going to do all this.
Which helped you achieve what you achieved.
Yeah.
So without that,
well, that's why I do say ego is not always bad.
Ego is not a bad thing.
Yeah, it's just like the social norm of ego is like, you know, it's like it gets a bad rap, but ego always isn't a bad thing.
Your ego is your sense of self.
As long as you have it in check.
Yeah.
You know,
ego is how we orientate ourselves. It's how we know what we are. The ego. I think people can conflate that with being egotistical.
Exactly.
Having a big ego, having an inflated ego. But like, the ego is very important, a real understanding of who we are and what we are. But yeah, that over-inflated sense of self is a different thing altogether.
Yeah, because then it just borderlines arrogance and...
Exactly.
You know,
which
and
is
it's
different.
like a self of, I'm better than everybody.
Exactly.
And nobody, you know, it's like, let he who is without sin cast the first stone. And it's like, that's why again, I don't really care about failure, because there is no perfect person in this world, so you can't judge me. And I can't judge anybody else, because I am far from a perfect person. I do stupid shit all the time. I say stupid shit all the time. And that's why, like, you know, I don't ever paint myself to be a perfect person, because, like, you know, I had a good talk with Chris Conley and, you know, Get Better with Chris. And it's nearly like people can only tear you down when you portray yourself to be this perfect person, because as soon as you step out of line, you're like, oh, see, there he is, that's the real him. And it's like, that's why I don't ever pretend that I'm a perfect person, because I am far from a perfect person. And everybody is far from a perfect person, you know, whether they just don't portray that on the online or public persona or whatever, and they're usually the people waiting for you to fuck up so they can pull the whole rug from underneath you. You know, but please God, nobody be ever able to pull the rug out from underneath me, because I never paint myself to be that kind of person, because I'm not.
It's the two elements to it, really, isn't there? There's how you build your own castle your own mindset, like how much weight do you give what you think about yourself, which is back to our earlier conversation. If you just have this self-belief in yourself, nothing can get in.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And the other one, do you ever watch Rick and Morty?
Yeah.
I love
Yeah, I
Rick
know.
and Morty.
I wouldn't be an avid watcher, but I know.
A huge fan of Rick and Morty, but there's a line and he says, your boos mean nothing to me. I've seen what makes you cheer.
Yeah.
As in, who are you to boo me or to say, you're just like me, completely imperfect, so I don't have to take your opinion and you don't have to take mine. But it means at least I can not insulate myself against the world. Like, we're social animals, other people's opinions are important to us, right?
Absolutely.
But the type of person, be very careful the type of person whose opinion means something to you.
Yes.
And unfortunately, social media exists nowadays, fortunately and unfortunately, but we're just drowning in opinions of people that we don't know who they are. And we don't know. We just assume because maybe they have a following, or maybe they're involved in something, or maybe they're very successful in a certain arena, that their opinion should mean something to us.
Yeah.
And my whole take on that is not necessarily, and maybe or maybe not, but it depends on your relationship with yourself. Once you have a relationship with yourself, you can start to identify the people who should be allowed into that castle. Whose opinion can mean
control
something.
It.
You have
to
control
what I mean?
it. Exactly.
But it's like with some of these people, like, I mean, why do I care about somebody hating me who doesn't even love themselves?
Exactly what I mean.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, it's like, and maybe fighting is a good, no, well, not always, because I know not every fighter is like this, but I just got so comfortable with people talking shit about me from when I was losing fights and whatever, that I've just got it so much throughout my whole life that I don't care.
See, you mentioned earlier on, you know the crowd and the fans don't know what goes on behind the scenes.
They have no clue.
So what they're saying means nothing to you because they don't know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
Literally, they don't know. They see the 1%. They see the whatever, the 3 rounds or the 5 rounds. They don't see the 6 months leading up to that, the 6 years, the decades leading up to that. So their opinion doesn't really carry as much weight because you've done
absolutely
all that time.
Do you know? But it's like it would be a whole different scenario if it was someone like, you know, the greatest to ever do it, John Jones. If John Jones was coming to me and he was ripping me to shreds and this is shit, that shit, and blah blah blah, I would be hurt because I'm like, oh, this guy really knows what he's talking about, and he's like,
or if your coach came to you, or one of your teammates came to you, or one of your family who knows you really well came to you. Because they're people you've acknowledged their opinion is worth it. It's worthwhile. And we need to have people that we obviously listen to their opinions. But yeah, no, I hear what you're saying.
Do you know what I mean? Like, it's like, I am always like, I don't care what the average, if I'm not coming to you when I'm down and I have a problem, or I have a big issue going on in my life, and I'm not looking for your like opinion on what I'm going through, I really don't care what you're going to tell me.
Yeah.
You know, if you're not somebody who I would really seek out for advice or ask what to do in a certain situation, I don't care if you're going to tell me I'm shy after I lose a fight, or, you know, this guy is never going to get back on his feet, or he's never going to do all this stuff that he said. Like, I don't care. Do you know, and I just think I've got so comfortable with people talking shit about me. I'm still human. When I see the stuff, you know, now, like, obviously, no one's really going to talk about somebody who's at the being paralysed from the neck down and that back.
Still be a prick.
You know, exactly. Well, that's a perfect.
Yeah.
It is, because it's so true. Because, and I say that, like, I am a rootless person, and I say it, just because you've got a bad injury doesn't all of a sudden make you a good person. You can be still a wanker in a wheelchair, and that's the truth. Like, and I don't care, because I tell, you know, I say what I want to say, and I tell it like it is, and that is the truth. You're not automatically a good person, and I didn't expect everybody to show up for me because I got this life-changing injury that was like, oh Jesus, it's such an unfortunate thing. It was like, no, I respected that people showed up for me after the injury, because I always tried to do right by everybody before the injury. I know I can put my head down on a pillow at night because I know I'm a good person. I don't need to convince anybody that I'm a good person, because I know the thoughts that I have within my own self when no one else is around, within my own head. And that's integrity. What do you do when there can be no other kind of like reward for what you're doing for somebody else? And I've always lived my life by that, you know, because my mother always said it's like the only time you look down on somebody is when you're helping them up. And that's so true. I've always lived my life by, I don't care what you can do for me. I just want to help you because good people help good people. And that's it. I don't ever do anything for something in return, or it's like, oh, I'm going to do this for him because he can help me do this. It's like, no, I just help people because that's what good people do. And that's why it was so nice after the accident when everybody did show up for me, because I only tried to do right by everybody previous to the accident. But yeah, you're perfectly right. You're not automatically, you don't turn into this good person because you're at having an unfortunate run in life, or you're at getting a bad injury, or this is at happening, or that's at happening. Yeah, people can pity you, but that doesn't make you a good person. Do you know? So
yeah, 100%. I think it maps nicely over the whole conversation we've been having. It's just another thing for us to look out for. We're not necessarily a good person just because we're in a certain job or have a certain amount of money or a certain status in life, and neither are other people. So when we're doing this whole exercise of trying to figure out who we are and who other people are and whose opinions we should be listening to, especially on social media, we can also use this lesson too. We can also use this lesson of, just because I see a certain thing here doesn't necessarily mean I have to align myself with this message or this person or join this community or think this way. I'm allowed to think my own way. And as soon as I start thinking my own way, and it's funny because you'll be familiar with this, as soon as you start to develop this system for your own thoughts and your own feelings, you start to spot the people who resonate with you much quicker. You're less likely to be drawn into negative conversations and things that don't serve you. Like we were talking about earlier on, like a lot of people they just want to feel connected.
Yeah, they just want to be part of something.
But as soon as you start to develop your own sense of who you are, you're a lot more picky about who you spend your time with, and who you give your energy to, and how many arguments online you have, and all of that stuff just tends to fall away, and you're a lot less frustrated and angry. You get triggered a lot less and activated a lot less because you're just a lot more comfortable
with your own self.
But that requires work.
I know, but
go ahead, go on.
I think like people just don't understand that the most important currency is time. You know, and if you're spending so much time with people who you don't align with, like it's like you're just wasting, you know. But in order, going back to your point there, I don't think a lot of people have set, I would say an overwhelming amount of the population haven't sat down with themselves and kind of had that conversation with themselves. What do I align with? What is my morals? You know, I don't really think that too many people have sat down and actually asked themselves that question. Because in order to live a fulfilling life, you need to be 100% clear on them things. And just because we all have different morals doesn't mean that we're good or bad people. It's just like you just need to get clear on what you believe in. You know, and I think too many people are not even really conscious of it. Like I think I'm conscious about it because I'm a deep thinker, same with you. But I think too many, there's a lot of surface level thinkers, and they are just going through life almost subconsciously. You know, they're not clear on anything. They're just, how will I pay a bill? How will I de-stress, go on a holiday maybe twice a year? You know, they're not really clear on their intentions for life. They're just going through life.
Yeah.
Do you know? And they're not even conscious of this.
Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will control your life and you will call it fate. Yeah. And if you don't decide the way you want to live your life, someone else is going to decide it for you. I'll speak for me here. It took me a long time to figure that out. I was living an unconscious life for a long time. Now, there was nothing particularly negative about it. There was no drink or drugs. I wasn't distracted by it. And it was just a pretty unconscious, grey life. And it took me the last 6-7 years of my life, since I became a father, really, to really start to understand how to live a more conscious, intentional life. So I know what it's like to live an unconscious life where everything's kind of grand, nothing's too challenging. You don't have to step outside if you don't the lines if you don't want it. And again, I grew up in a lovely middle class family where I didn't necessarily have to do any of these things. I could just cruise through life if I wanted to. I remember my teacher's reports used to always say, loads of potential, could try harder.
Yeah.
And now I think back, because that could try harder bit stings me now, because I'm like, fuck, there was so much more potential. But that just means now I can lean into that potential.
I know, but it's like, it's only, you know, you can kind of reflect on all that you want, but
Hindsight
now
2020.
exactly,
Yeah.
but now you are conscious about it.
Yeah.
But then it just
But the point is
says,
I had to develop that as a skill.
Yeah.
It's not something that came naturally.
I know,
to me.
but you're willing to. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yes. Sorry, I agree. When the choice came, the choice I made was, do not want to live this way anymore.
Yes.
We'll take actions.
Yeah.
So yeah, I accept that. I did. It was definitely a decision. But my only point is, there's probably a lot of people listening now who might be in that unconscious, who will acknowledge they're in the unconscious, who kind of on some level know, like in their gut.
I know, but there's part of not really the unconscious if you're conscious about it. Do you know what I'm saying?
I do know what you're saying, yeah.
Like because I suppose, you know, the key to everything is consciousness. Because if you don't even realise that you're living your life a certain way, or you're not doing something that you should be doing, then how nobody's the wiser. But if you're saying like that even somebody who's listening, you know, recognises that they might be not living their life, that's a conscious.
I think it's a conscious thing. I think it's nuanced, because we spoke before about the comfort thing. I think there's we're caught in the comfort, so it's much harder to step outside of that. Whereas before, like again, back to your upbringing in relative poverty, that's an uncomfortable environment. So you are driven. You've a motivating factor to make some changes. Whereas if I'm in a comfortable environment, I mean, people can be sick of me saying this now, but I worked in the medical industry. People wouldn't change their health till they had a heart attack. So they knew. Yeah. They knew that they were living unhealthy lives, but there was no motivating factor strong enough to get them to change.
Yeah.
And there was unconscious stuff in their background leading them to some bad habits. So it was all mixed in, but it wasn't a straightforward answer. So maybe there was alcoholism in their family. So that was something deep ingrained in them. Maybe there was some issue around food. There was some trauma that led them to, like, not necessarily bad behaviors, but like bad habits and stuff. And then that developed into bad lifestyle, and that developed into bad mindsets. And it all just kept rolling and rolling and rolling. So I'm not trying to make excuses for people.
No, of course, I know.
But I'm always just trying to understand, if I'm not Ryan or Dan now, because like we've both through our own journey started to develop this level of awareness. It's for me, it's a lifetime thing now. I'm gonna be doing this forever, trying to figure more and more and more. If I'm feeling now there's something there, like this midlife crisis thing is coming down the road, or I don't want my deathbed conversation to be, oh fuck, I regret doing all those things. I just want to always make it really clear it is possible to change now.
Absolutely.
And we've talked about some strategies there. Like, it's usually really small things, but it starts off with having the conversation, being willing to be uncomfortable. It's going to be uncomfortable.
I know, but I think too many people think it's too far away. It's like what you were saying earlier on.
Table.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you know, and it's like, what's the best time to plant a tree? 25 years ago. Yeah. When's the second best?
Right now. Yeah.
Do you know, and that's it. You need to be switched on to go, no, I can do this. Because again, there's no difference between, like, I'm not this God, Ryan Court has done this or that. Doesn't. I'm just an ordinary person where I would probably say with an extraordinary mindset or thought process. But that can be all developed.
Yeah.
You know, and that's it. But you just need to understand that, okay, I'm going to be uncomfortable here for a little while. And as long as you can sit with yourself through that uncomfortable period of your life, because with me, I'm nearly almost seeking uncomfortability all the time, because I am so sometimes nearly too fixated on growing as a person all the time, because sometimes you do need to just go give yourself the flowers while you can smell them. You know, sometimes I'm looking to progress too much that I actually haven't stopped and gone, wow, you've done a really good thing here, or you've done an amazing job. And I will bring myself back, because again, I'm conscious that I am that person. So I do sometimes bring myself back and go, all right, well, just relax here because you've done a good thing. And, you know, that's it. You can be too far the other way, because, you know, there's like that thing. It's, what is it? It's, you said that you're gonna be happy when you reach this goal. But
you're sacrificing the thing. Chris Crillinson talks about this
yeah,
all the time.
what is it?
You sacrifice the thing that make you happy for the thing that you thought would. So you thought money would make you happy. So you sacrificed what actually makes you happy, which is time and connection and love, to get that thing. That you thought would make you happy,
I heard them say that, but
Yeah.
it's not. It's a different thing where people say that you would be happy when you hit a certain goal, but you've hit the goal and you're still not happy.
Okay, yeah.
Do you know?
Yeah,
do you know? Do you ever say that?
There's another one, is the contract you make with yourself to not be happy until you achieve a certain thing. Is it that one? That's a Naval Ravikant quote.
I don't know. He's phenomenal. That guy.
Outrageous, yeah.
Great.
I do. I get the concept you're saying.
Well, you know what I'm trying to say.
100%,
It's like there's so many things that we said that when we hit
you have the thing you said would make you happy,
when we get this house, we're gonna be happy. When we get this car, we're gonna be happy. Or else not even a car or a house. When we reach this goal, we're gonna be happy. And now you've reached that goal, but then you're still not happy.
Yeah.
So,
because happiness is a temporary state, and I think we talk about this a lot as well. I think getting fixated on being happy, is telling yourself that there's a place or a time you're going to get to, where you're going to feel different to now. No. You can feel something right now, and for me, the word is peace. I always think it's peace, but it's even deeper lately. I'm doing a little bit of work lately, and now it's peace and presence.
Well, so I would say contentment.
Contentment is another great word to put in there.
Yeah.
The peace and presence bit for me is, if I feel at peace, it means there's no overwhelm. I'm not thinking about a million different things outside. And if I feel present, I'm able to be in this moment right now with Ryan Curtis and engage with you here. I'm able to actually experience my kids when I'm with them.
Which is such a phenomenal thing, bro.
Which is outrageous, which I couldn't do for a while.
Yeah.
I was distracted. I was outwardly going, right, I'm going to build a business, because when I build a business, I'm going to have the money. I'm going to buy the time, get the time, I'm going to spend time with my family. And I'll do this whole fucking thing, and I get to the end of it and go, are you dense? Like, I'm thinking about this, and my daughter sitting looking at me. It's like, she's right here.
But ultimately, our final goal was to buy back time.
Which I'm going to waste all this time.
That's what I mean.
To get back to the point that I'm actually at right now.
Yeah.
Now, look, I know there's practical considerations. We need a level of security. Have to provide our family. This is not saying that. This is not this.
I know. Sometimes I think when you have this conversation, and some
just forget
people,
about money and sit.
Yeah.
I'd live in a box and I'd be happy with you. No, you wouldn't, because you'd be living in a box. Like, there's a mid-ground here. But I think the principle stays the same. Peace and presence means that when I'm with my kids, and when I'm with my missus, and when I'm with you, I can be in the moment, and I can experience that moment. When I drink this cup of tea in the morning, I can experience the cup of tea. These seem like silly things, but I can actually go, that was a nice warm cup of tea.
I know, but...
And then I can go to work.
It's all them little things, though. That's what life. People don't really realise. Like, like I heard like Jordan Peterson talk about it before, and he was like, the levels, the kind of the levels of joy in your life should be how your wife and your kids greet you. But when you're walking through the door every day, because that happens so much throughout your life, the kind of being on
until it doesn't anymore.
Yeah, well that's it. So that's why you should enjoy it while it's there, But I think too many people can't find the happiness in the small things, where I am so conscious about, just enjoying the small things. And I've always been. Well, I'm saying, well, sometimes, and I say always, I'm going on like I've been blatant thinking this way since I'm...
This is why I wanted to have the conversation the way I did, because I get what you're saying, but I don't think you've always been, you've developed it.
Yes, that's what I do, but I mean for like the last good couple of years on reflection. But not from always, and I need to kind of stop saying always, because that's not true, because like we talked about earlier on, I had to do so much unlearn.
And that's the gap bit that I mentioned. That's why sometimes people might listen, they go, oh, he's just always been like that. I can never do that, because he's just different.
You're right.
You're not different.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that out of disrespect.
No, I know, because I completely agree with you, and that's more so what I'm trying to tell the audience too.
And that's what I get when you say it. Yeah.
Because it's so important that the audience look at me and realise he is not any different.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, I'm not any different. I'm really not. Because, sometimes like, I never want to be kind of same different, because then the average person can't relate with me anymore. Because that's not true. And that's why I talk about my vulnerability and my insecurities and everything. I still feel all them feelings. I'm not a robot. I'm not any different. I'm like you. I'm like any other person. I just choose to handle things a little bit different sometimes.
I think that's so important to say, Ryan. I think when we look at people in certain positions, especially again on social media and successful people, we just assume that because they have this level of success, they must have everything sorted out.
Yeah.
And in 100% of conversations I've had, it is really clear to me that not only is not everything else sorted out, they're just as chaotic as me underneath the surface. It's the same thing.
I would say to everybody, especially the young kids, when you look at social media, you're watching someone's highlight reel.
The best thing
There is no lowlights on social media.
Yeah.
There's just all highlights. You are watching people. And you know what? Even to an extent, you're not even really, because that's a fake highlight. They're only smiling for the camera for that 2 seconds. They're probably at having murder with their wife.
It's not even their Lamborghini.
Yeah, it's rent. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, and then it's deemed, you're deemed a failure, especially as a young man as well, because like obviously a lot of the time the financial capability is bestowed upon the man a lot of the time in the family, and you are deemed a failure if you don't have a Ferrari and a mansion when you're 25. But meanwhile, a lot of that is not even true, because the idea, not always, but a lot of the time if you see somebody with a Lambo or a Ferrari when they're young, I mean, they've either inherited it through their family, or else it's not even theirs, they've rented it.
Yeah.
Do you know?
And man, this stuff comes up. It's so interesting, the threads that come up. There's two things I want to say. One, I recently did an interview with Phil Graham. It's coming out probably 2 weeks after this goes out. Legend, yeah. When he spoke about this, because he has the Ferrari and the mansion. And he says, people look at me sitting in this Ferrari and they think I'm happy because I'm sitting in the Ferrari.
Yeah.
Because it's fucking nothing to do with the Ferrari. It's not about they need to forget it's about the Ferrari. Yeah. I could be miserable someday sitting in the Ferrari. But he says, I'm happy for other reasons, and those reasons have nothing to do with the Ferrari. So it's nice to drive a Ferrari.
Yeah,
that wears off real fast.
Yeah.
And I think and again, not someone who I'd usually go to for quotes, but James Smith always talks about this. You can be miserable in a Polo, you can be miserable in a fucking Lambo. Yeah. The thing doesn't make a difference.
I know, but you know what? I shared that one of Chris Williamson on my story. It was like, people talk about, I'd rather cry.
Oh yeah.
In me.
He spoke about this a lot recently.
Yeah, it was such an eye opener, and I was like, when I actually thought about it, it was phenomenal. He said, I'd rather cry or people say that they'd rather cry in a Ferrari
than a Fiesta.
Yeah, but he was saying, not really, because at least if you're crying in a Fiesta, you can go, but at least I can chase the Ferrari.
Yeah.
But if you're in the Ferrari, it's like, I'm in the Ferrari and I'm crying.
Isn't it the Will Smith quote he uses? Will Smith used to say, when I was poor and miserable, I wished I could be rich and happy. Now I'm rich and miserable, but there's nowhere to go.
Yeah, bro.
There's nowhere to fuck. I've got.
When I heard Will Smith say that, I was like, whoa.
And that's the gold medal syndrome for the athletes we spoke about. I won the Olympic medal. It was supposed to make me happy. But I've nothing else. I can't win. I could just win another Olympic medal.
I know, but again, how many people need to hear the same message and think that's what's going to fix their problems?
Yeah.
Here is people, not one, not two, millions of people telling you this is not going to fix your problems, but you just don't want to listen.
Yeah.
Do you know? And that's why I'm kind of like, you know, when I'm so happy. For me, I'm so happy that from a young age I was always able to, for whatever reason, look at the people saying these messages and go, well, why, you know, there's not just that one person saying it. So I was actually able to take her on board, you know, but so many people listen to what people saying, they just for whatever reason don't take her on board. I don't know why that is. I don't know.
I think it's a certain level of human nature that our desire to have our desire to be happy is so strong that if this person is showing us that they're in a Lamborghini, telling us it's not about having a Lamborghini, I'm like, well, fuck what he says. He's got the Lamborghini, he's got the Instagram, he's got the followers, he's got the money. Whatever, what he says doesn't mean anything, because I can see he has all this stuff. He must be happy. And I think our drive to be happy, quote unquote, is so strong that we'll just ignore that. And Naval talked about this as well. He says sometimes it's easier to achieve your desires than renounce them. Like, some people just need to go and get the Ferrari to realise the Ferrari's not going to make them happy. But what I think is sad is most people are never going to get the Ferrari to realise the Ferrari will make them happy, but will always want the Ferrari.
Yeah.
So you're going to have 99% of the population who are always going to want something they can never have, and they'll be miserable because of it. Whereas if you're able to do what you spoke about earlier on and sit with yourself and figure out, you'll very quickly realise it's not the Ferrari. I promise.
Yeah.
Now, I'd love a Ferrari. Don't get me
Absolutely.
wrong.
No better man.
I'm not saying.
Jesus,
Fucking,
no, but
I'll take the Ferrari.
Yeah.
But I also now know I can also be happy in my Skoda, which I have now. Which I love my Skoda. I love driving my Skoda. I'd love a Ferrari, but I love driving the Skoda because that's what I have and I can experience that. And if I'm to listen to these guys now, the message now makes sense to me because I've sat with myself a little bit. Now when I hear these guys saying that, I'm like, okay, I believe these guys now. I don't need a Ferrari to make me happy. I still want to go get the Ferrari.
Yeah.
But it's not going to be happiness. It's a different thing. And there's a clip that comes up over and over. And who's the actor that plays Better Call Saul? He's Saul from Breaking Bad. Do you know that actor?
Yeah, Jimmy. I don't know the actor, but his name, what's his, because Better Saul. Yeah, but his name is Jimmy something. Is real, so Better Call Saul's real name in...
Oh, okay. I don't
his
know
name is Jimmy McGill. Jimmy McGill is his name, but sorry, I don't know the actor.
Yeah. Anyway, there's a recent clip going around of him on a podcast. I cry every time I see it.
Right.
Because he's asked, I think the question is something like, who are you jealous of? And he says, people who still have little kids at home. Every time.
Oh, when he said...
I'm really crying now.
I swear to God, when he said that, and you know, it just, again, and I've said this on other podcasts, because my true measure of a man is how good of a father he is. And I know that, you know, that's, again, because that's my measure. It doesn't have to be everybody's measure, but that's my measure of a man. How good of a father of you? Because somebody said to me before, like, what is success for you? And success for me is what way my kids talk about me when they're older. Yeah. You know, and that's that, you know, don't get me wrong, winning world championships and trying to do all these things, even coming back from the injury and all, brilliant. But that's not success for me. Success for me is what way do my kids talk about me when they're older. Yeah. You know, and but again, like we talked about, success means different things for different people. Yeah. You know, but it's just like when he said that. He says that, and I'm thinking, he is a highly successful person with all the things we're supposed to want. Yeah. He's jealous of me. Yeah. I have young kids at home. He would pay, probably give all his money to be in the position I am right now. And that probably, well, obviously before I had kids, it wouldn't have meant much to me. Even 4 or 5 years ago, my eldest, my daughter's 7 now. Even 4 or 5 years ago, I just struggled to really feel that message. Now he says it and it hits me like a bowling ball in the stomach. Because it makes me more present, because I like enjoy it while it's here. This is going away. And that's it as well. Because what I do say to people, the best thing anybody can have is enough. And you have enough right now. Do you know what I mean? Because you've figured out before you get your mansion and before you get your Ferrari, which I believe you will have one day if you continue to pursue them. I'm hopeful for you. But you have already recognized that you are living the dream right now. You don't need it. Them things are a bonus and they're great, but you're already living the dream. And that's it. You know, people don't recognize that if they just stopped for a second and looked around. And that's why I'm so big on gratitude. I'm so big about gratitude, and just I scream about it all the time, because if you are grateful for what you have, you know, you'll never want more, you know, and only more can come to you when you're grateful for what you already have. But if you're just in a constant mindset of want, lack, it's so difficult, you know what I mean? Because you can't even appreciate what you already do have. Do you know? And there's just I just see that so much with people. They're just not, like, it's like even with me, you know, you can have 1,000 problems, but you've only one problem when you have a health problem. Do you know? And people just take their health for granted because they don't have that problem at the current time. And it's not until they have that problem that they're like, on reflection, you know, maybe you should have enjoyed that time a little bit more. But it's never too late to go, or I'll just enjoy more moments coming up. And that's why I try to be so, and I am so present. And that's why I'm kind of a little bit, like, even though I have a good following and stuff, I'm a bit shit at social media, because I'm not whipping out my phone every 2 minutes to get content, because I'm so present when I'm around people. And especially like somebody like yourself, where I'm like, I always think of a conversation when I'm speaking to you, I'm like, I always learn something from Dan. And I love talking to Dan. And, you know, so the last thing that I want to do when I'm with you is whip out my phone and get some content or do this or do that. Same thing when I'm with my daughter. It's like I tell people the stories of like fighting in front of 30,000 people in the Middle East or fighting in a sold-out arena where everybody's there, everybody's screaming my name. Them moments mean nothing to me in comparison to me having an ice cream with my daughter and playing with our dog and stuff like that. That is, you know, and I'm so grateful to realise that's making it. It's not everything else getting validation from people who I don't even care about. Don't get me wrong, it's great when people tell you like, oh yeah, fair play, you done this, you do it, brilliant. I don't know them people though, like, you know what I mean? So it's like, not that I don't know them, I don't want to be disrespectful in saying that, but I'm saying, you know, like people like that come and go, you know, but people like my daughter, it's my whole life.
Yeah.
So
I think that's beautiful, man. And I think on that point, I agree with you. There's nothing wrong with worldly pleasures. It's like and Buddhists would call it that, like the worldly pleasure and the real world versus the emotional world or the spiritual world. Nothing wrong with that. But that's not what true peace is. That's not what true happiness is.
Sitting here talking on a podcast for gold, watch it, you know what I mean? I'm not, like, I like nice things. I'm a magpie, I will say that. I like nice cars, I like shiny stuff. They don't define me as a person, though. Yeah. They're just something that I like.
Yeah. They're pleasures.
Yeah.
They're not this happiness
thing.
They're
additions to my life. I don't get happiness from them things. They're just additions to my life that I like. You know, I would never sell my soul for something like that because I already know and I already value what's important to me. And that's only, again, like we talked about, that's only because I've sat down and had deep reflections with myself, you know, because too many people don't sit down and talk to themselves, you know, like it's like you need to get clear what you value or what you want from life. Not even like that, like what your values are. You just also need to get clear, what do we want in life? What would make, well, it's like sometimes you can't say what would make me happy because a lot of the time people think that the stuff, and it's not.
It's definitely the Ferrari.
You know? Like, and that's what I think it was Jim Carrey said before. I wish that I could make everybody in the world a millionaire for them to recognize that this is not really what you want. It's just something that you think is going to make you happy.
Yeah.
But when you get them millions, you know, don't care again. Bigger, like, you know, I mean, yeah.
Well, Naval says this, like, is if you're poor, you're going to be miserable, like. So
yeah,
it's not about money's not going to make you happy.
Yeah.
Money's not going to solve your problems, but it'll solve your money problems.
Yeah.
He often says that. But I think it's important to acknowledge that it's not about being a pauper or being a starving artist or denouncing all the worldly pleasures
of course not.
For the sake of your inner peace. But there's a mid-ground there.
Yeah, it's just about, I think it's more about just not tying your self-worth up in it.
In external things.
You know?
Yeah. Which sounds like a cliche to people, but there's a reason these things are cliches.
I always say there's a reason why cliches are cliches.
Yeah, people say them so fucking often.
And if people usually tend to repeat things often, especially the people, here it is somebody with all the money in the world telling you, I have all the money in the world. It's not what you think it is. So again, like, and that's why I'm always so grateful that I am able to take on board information. It's like, I've heard this same story millions of times. Why would I not believe it?
Yeah.
Do you know?
Yeah.
So
I'm going to bring this one home now because you've been very generous with your time today.
Yeah, of course.
Do you at the moment have like an active practice for this? Because you've done a lot of reflection over time. Some of it forced because you were lying in bed, you couldn't move. But do you now have like a practice or a routine or a regime or like an active method for doing self-reflection or checking in with yourself or figuring out how you're feeling about certain things? Or is this just kind of something that you've built into your day-to-day and you kind of do it a little bit more naturally?
Yeah, like, I wouldn't say that I have like, I sit down with myself like on at 6 o'clock every night for self-reflection. But I do kind of tend to have conversations with myself when I am alone and I have time to myself. You know, I do self-reflect a lot because my main goal in life for myself it's something that I will never be able to achieve. And that's why I want it, is to be a better person than I was yesterday. And I constantly say that to myself. I don't ever compare myself to anybody, or, because it's like comparison is the thief of joy. And I really believe that. So my whole goal is to just be a better person than I was yesterday. And that's why I do self-reflect so much. I'd be like, okay, what would make me a better person? And what would, again, I am a very deep thinker, but I think a lot of it spirals from gratitude. I think if more people practiced gratitude and wrote 3 things that they're grateful for every day, it kind of, especially in the morning, it sets you up for the whole day, because it's a constant reminder, like, oh no, I've already so much. Do you know, if you start your day with 3 things that you're grateful for, you're not really living in lack then, because, too many people are just caught up in, oh, I could have this, I could have that, I want this, I want that. Yeah, you could, but if you already are happy with what you already have, you can get more, and that's why gratitude, I feel like, is such an underdeveloped, practice. Too many people don't, because I suppose, like, just as humans, it's just in us to be greedy and to want more, 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 more. It's like, when is enough enough? Like, why does, like, anybody really need to be a billionaire? Let's be honest, you don't.
Yeah,
Do you know? But us as human, I think, and then I suppose, because everybody's chasing something, isn't it? Because when people, I think when people get the billionaires, like, in levels of wealth, it becomes more of a status game then. It's like, oh yeah, but this guy has 100 billion, and I want to be the first guy to reach 200 billion. But I think, like, me personally, it's just, if you're living a life where you're constantly trying to chase, like, it's a battle for me too, because I am constantly trying to develop myself and evolve as a person. But again, like I talked about earlier on, but I still want to be content and to be happy with what I have and where I'm at. But it is a battle, because you don't want to get complacent and you don't want to get comfortable. I never want to get comfortable, because again, when you're comfortable, that's when you stop growing as a person. And again, another cliche, you don't grow when you're comfortable, but that's the truth. But yeah, like, I think definitely for for kind of normal day-to-day things, I would kind of practice gratitude a lot. Definitely gratitude. But again, when I'm sitting by myself, I like to have reflection, and I like to talk to some of my other friends about, I have, like, a lot of friends who are very deep thinkers, Oddly enough, a lot of me male friends, which I probably thought would have been more females, would be deep thinkers, but in my experience with the females who kind of are around me, it would be more my male friends who would be actually the deep thinkers,
It's almost a self-fulfilling prophecy, I find, in these spaces as well. If there's people, there's often loads of people who can think quite deeply, but if the environment doesn't facilitate it, it never comes out. But if you're a type of person, which you are, who is able to open up and be a bit more vulnerable and be a bit deeper, you'll find, the people who gravitate into conversation which you recognize that, and then they're willing to do it as well. It's another
like an
version.
open invitation.
Exactly, yeah. It's another version of what we spoke about earlier on with the kind of group thing. It's the positive version of that.
Yes.
Whereas if there's a lot of closed-minded conversation with, like, single-mind outcomes and a lot of anger and stuff like that, people gravitate towards that because it's the easy win, the cheap dopamine. But if there is a space that's safe and a bit more vulnerable and a bit deeper, you'll find people who are ready for that will gravitate in there, and all of a sudden you'll be surrounded by people. I found this as soon as I was able to be a little bit more vocal and vulnerable with how I thought about stuff. All of a sudden people started to come out of the woodwork. It's like,
yeah,
I never knew you thought this. But it was only because I started to say certain things that people recognize, oh, he's also feeling like this. And then really quickly we realize, Ryan, you're just a version of me.
Yeah.
And he's just a version of me, and she's just a version of me. We're all just versions of each other. We're all fundamentally the same thing. But we all have this individual identity in our own head, and it's very, very, very easy to build massive defenses around ourselves, not let anybody in, and just become completely consumed by this persona we've created.
Yeah, well, I just think like it's like nobody really wants to be vulnerable because they don't want to be judged.
Yeah.
Do you know? Where like, to be honest, I don't, again, let he who was without sin cast the first stone. I don't care about being judged because I know you're not a perfect person, because I know I'm not a perfect person, and I don't think God has ever made a perfect person. Like the story of Jesus is supposed to be the perfect person, and they stoned him to death. Or crucified him, or, you know, so, I mean, like, it's just us as humans. That's just the way we are, unfortunately. Like, you know, we're just too caught up in our own mind, thinking that, like, oh, that's embarrassing, you know, what have I said that? And they, you know, like, it's,
do you know what? It's unfortunate, but it's also beautiful that humans are flawed.
Yeah, absolutely.
It just leaves space.
Well, it's
for
what
all
makes
this.
us human.
It's literally what makes us human.
You know,
it's all of these stories that you read about the immortals and the gods, and there's always this Achilles heel, this idea that they're perfect in every single way, and for that reason they struggle to connect and love and appreciate.
Because the envy, and that story about the gods envy us because we're not perfect.
Because we're not perfect, and because we're mortal, and because it will end, and therefore it's so much more valuable because it's finite. Whereas if you're going to live forever and have all the power in the world,
well, it's like, why does everybody want diamonds? Why does everybody want gold? Because not everybody can have them things.
Yeah.
Do you know?
It's rare.
And that's it. Like, if you could just go outside here now and get a bag of diamonds, nobody'd be like, you wouldn't care about them.
If you could live forever, then it wouldn't have
exactly.
Your days.
Because you wouldn't. If you could live forever, you wouldn't care about being present so much.
Yeah. And that's the great way of flipping it. We can't live forever. So now look at the number. Like, have you ever done that exercise where you look at how many days on average a person lives? It's not that many, man. No. You see it up on a chart. It fit on the chart side of the TV there.
No, but you know, one thing that I do kind of always pay close attention to is both my parents that passed away, but I seen that chart before that, like, if you visit, you know, if you live abroad and you visit your parents like once a week or once a month or whatever, you're only going to see them for X amount of time.
17 more times or something. No, don't worry about that. You're all right.
But yeah, you know, so sorry about that.
Even if you don't live abroad, so Ryan is doing his best to ruin my table here.
I'm jealous of it.
It's only a table.
I'm jealous of it.
Even if you don't live abroad, like, it's a great lesson, because most of us live so close, we take it for granted, and I think this is part of the problem with presence. We have the stuff, so that can't be the source of happiness. I already have it.
It's just like, you know, that too many people don't factor in that kind of thing. Do you know what I mean? Where they're like, you know, like, it's not until you see a chart like that where that's a real eye opener. Like, it's because when you break it down, that, you know, there's nothing more than I'd love to spend some time with me ma. You know, I used to think that the whole time that when I was going through this, like, I'd love me ma to be here. You know, she always made me feel great. She, you know, always made me feel loved, and, you know, she was like, in a sense, a comfort blanket for me. You know what I mean? I was a mammy's boy growing up, you know. So, but I think it's not until you break it down, like, where it's like, or if I only go see my parents or the people who I cared about this amount of times, I'm only going to see them 20 times until they're dead.
Yeah.
Do you know? And I know that, like, obviously you couldn't predict the exact amount of times, but on average.
Yeah. And there's other ones, like, every time you put your child on your knee, you're only going to do that another, even if it's like 160 times, you're like, now it's 159.
Yeah.
Now it's 100. And once you start to think about it like that, and some people don't like this. I think a lot about death, and some people think that's very morbid.
Yeah.
But I think about it to make me appreciate life so much more. It's a contrast for me that's so powerful. If I am going to hug my daughter on my knee 159 more times, you better believe it's going to be 159 hours that she's not getting away from me, because now it's real, and we're really bad as humans. Really bad at seeing things big picture.
Yeah.
Because we're so hyper focused on the now, which we have to do to survive traditionally. The next meal, where's it coming from? I don't know. But in today's world, we know where the next meal is coming from, but we're still hyper fixated on, as you said, the next thing, the next million, the next billion, whatever. If you zoom out once and look at what our human life is, it's nothing. It's not that long. So if we can, look, we're so bad at this long-term vision. If we can develop a bit more long-sightedness to see, well, this could end. Everyone knows the cliche, I could get knocked down by a bus tomorrow. I could have a train accident tomorrow and be told I'm not going to walk ever again. That's literally right there for all of us all the time. I think doing that regularly helps our brain, helps
Absolutely.
our biology rewire a little bit.
But as well as that, it's like, you know, if people really thought about life that way, they would take the risks and they wouldn't be afraid of other people judging them or whatever. It's like, we are only here for a couple of years, and see, once we're gone, like bad, like your kids, and then it's only going to get so far. And
maybe
like,
grandkids
might
remember your name.
And then you're gone.
Then you're gone.
We are a blip on the map here,
Yeah.
and life goes by in the blink of an eye. And I think it's a real, because that's what I say. The real failure is somebody who never even tries, because in my definition of a loser is just not people who fail. It's just people who give up. Like, you know, if you just fail but you just refuse to give up, it's like that thing. Like, you know, the great man is the man who fell down 9 times and got up 10. Do you know, not the man who never fell at all. Because in my opinion, how much you know about somebody if they've never been through hardships? Because it's easy for all of us. Like, it would have been easy for me to turn around and go, oh yeah, sure, if I got paralysed from the neck down, I'd just bounce up like it never happened. Do you know what I mean? It would have been easy for me to say that. But now that I've been in it and I've done it, now people will go, oh, okay. You know, so, and one thing that I always say that I'm so proud of, and I really am, I don't give myself a lot of credit for a lot of stuff, but I'm so proud that my character and who I was as a person never changed when I was fighting in arenas and when I was paralysed from the neck down. I always still treated people the same way, the same, you know, I had the same morals, the same values, all them things. I never changed who I was as a person, you know, so I always say I really respect that about myself.
Yeah.
You know, and I now don't always give myself credit for different things, but that's one thing that I will say that I respect myself for.
Fair play.
You know?
Well, I didn't know you as a fighter, but I'm very glad I know you now. I'm glad our worlds came together. And we've a lot of great conversations now, but thank you so much for your time today.
No, thanks. I loved it.
Really enjoyed that now. Yeah. I really enjoyed that. And I find with conversations like this, it's like I said, you start to attract the type of person that you want to have these conversations with, and you open up these spaces. And you're one of the people that walked into not even on my podcast, you walked into my space, and we kind of developed a bit of back and forth. And before we do go, you are starting your own podcast.
Oh yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that.
So it's going to be called Maiden. And here, let me go before we even get into the podcast. I would not even be half as far. No, look, I know, but I just want to give, again, I like to give people their flowers while they can smell them. And you have been such a phenomenal help for me, and you've saved me so much time, so many headaches, and so much hassle. And thanks so much. I really respect everything that you've done for me, and thank you.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure.
But I just wanted to let you know that before we got into it, but the podcast is called Made in Chaos. And basically the whole premise of the podcast is how sometimes what you think is the worst time in your life that you're going through actually makes you into the best version and the best person that you can be. And that's where the name comes from, Made in Chaos, you know, because obviously life can be chaotic at times. And again, I just want to embrace failure and embrace setbacks and not look at them like this such a bad thing, you know. That's why I don't believe in participation medals for kids. I will never let my child accept a participation medal because it teaches all the wrong lessons. There is nothing wrong with failure. All the learning is in failure, and obviously we've spoke about it today on the podcast. But I'm just going to be having guests on who's going to share their life experiences and how they've come back from the tough times, and to have a laugh as well. I don't want it to be a really heavy podcast where it's like every time someone tunes in, it's like, oh, this is going to be, you know, really,
deep soul searching stuff.
It's like, it doesn't have to be that all the time. My main objective for the podcast is for my listeners to get tools and skills and different kind of like even perspectives that they can implement in their own lives. That's my biggest thing, you know. I just want my listeners to go, that's a really cool way, you know, because maybe even me as a person, I'm constantly searching for ways for my mind to be changed about things. I want to hear other people go, oh, I don't agree with you on that, and here's why. And there's so many times where I'll never say I'm dead set on something, but I'd have a really strong opinion and belief about something, and someone goes, well, that probably shouldn't be the best way to think about it, and here's why. And then I go, oh my God, it's like, that's so, it just changed the way I thought about something so much. And I love when that happens, you know, because again, if that happens, then I'm like, oh, I'm grown as a person, and I'm nearly addicted to grown as a person. So that's what I'm trying to do for my guests.
Well, I've been lucky enough to see this start as a little seedling and grow now, and the studio you have is unbelievable, and the lineup of guests and the conversations I know you're going to have is class. So people keep an eye. I'm not sure when the official launch date is. I don't have to say it now if you don't have a launch date, but definitely follow along. On Instagram's probably the best place to follow along.
Well, anything is really Chaos Curtis.
Chaos Curtis.
At Chaos Curtis.
Yeah.
And obviously the podcast is going to be at Made in Chaos. So, I'm really looking forward to it. But thanks for all your help, and thanks for this great conversation today, bro.
Absolutely. Appreciate your time, and I look forward to the next one.
Gentlemen, thank you.
My friends, thank you so much for listening to another episode of the show, and thank you very much to Mr. Ryan Chaos Curtis. Even though he did try and absolutely destroy my table at the end, he was so generous with his time, and I really, really enjoyed that one. If you are a fan of the show and you want to catch clips from other episodes or see who's coming up on the show, do head over to Instagram and drop me a follow at The Dan Campion, TheDanCampion. You'll usually know ahead of time who's coming up next on the show, and you sometimes get some nice behind the scenes to see how everything is put together. Thank you again for your time. I really do appreciate it, and I will see you in the next episode.